this year's the first year I've ever like really even come face to face with the idea of like, oh, there may come a day, and like who knows, in the future, it could be even like the near future, where like Girl Defined either has a drastic change or kind of like comes to the end of its existence as it's been known. It's just like if Davey grew up and he were like, I'm gay. It's like, literally to me, I'm not gonna, I'm like, I love you. Come in my home. Come, bring your person with you. Like this weekend will absolutely change how I view people because I'm spending time with people who are different than me.
Are we doing this?
Yeah.
Is this happening?
Second time. Except I feel better this time. I didn't even need a push-ups or anything. No.
We did our delts before.
Yeah, I'm still on a high from the fence work we did.
We're here in Texas with Bethany and Dave Beal, who I don't think need any introduction.
How is everyone
doing?
How you doing?
Well, the Thursday night, I got like no sleep because we went to bed late, and then I was just like up tossing and turning, and so I was like literally so exhausted yesterday. I wanted to like crawl under a rock and like sleep forever. And like my stomach, like when like, you don't sleep, your like stomach just gets sick. So I had I literally couldn't like hardly eat yesterday because my stomach was so sick. So I got better sleep last night.
Can I just say that didn't really show at all yesterday? You were so like
You're very
bright
kind.
and lovely and
Vivacious.
just with us and everything.
Still managed to feed birds out of your hand.
Offer us bars.
What do you do on your good days? Fully rested.
I feel like right now I think I'm feeling the best I felt all weekend. So I'm feeling really good. Dave always helps me like figure out like what I need to do to like make like choices to get myself in the right place. Like sometimes I think this weekend I've kind of like let the circumstances happen to get me in a good place. But then it's like I didn't sleep and then I was exhausted and my stomach hurt, and so then it's like downhill, and it's like you have to go back and like make those choices of like, okay, how can I be more like in control and like drive this rather than just like responding.
And I feel like we had some really intense conversations at dinner last night.
Circa 3380. Like I really don't know what that would have been like at all.
Not circa.
That Bethany, you held so much space for.
You're very sweet.
Like the level of, again, I said yesterday in the video, I feel like I could say anything and it would be safe.
The blue dress, gold dress conversation didn't end in fist fights, which was amazing.
We're still here together.
I felt really bad at dinner. I was almost like, I might have to go home. Like,
Really?
I was like, I might have to like get a ride back or something. I felt like so sick. I just felt like really, my stomach was like trash. I like couldn't, like I like 3 bites of my salad. I was just like, ugh. But it was a big challenge for me because like, honestly, I've been telling Dave, like, I haven't like read a lot of the stuff that like y'all have all read like over the past few years, or like listened to a lot of this and stuff. And it's interesting to me, but like I can't speak the language. So it's like, it is a challenge to like be a part of something, but that you don't really understand. So you're more like learning and hearing, but not necessarily participating. And so it's like, oh, it's just a challenging personal experience, which is good. Like I want to grow, I want to be challenged and even know how to handle that. But I think the physical sickness
On a smaller level, like I do relate because when Tanner and Dave are talking, they have a specific like areas of study that I don't really have. I just kind of pick it up through Tanner. Some are like when you're talking about Nicaea, I'm like, what's Nicaea? Never heard that in my whole life.
Nicaea.
I was shocked by like y'all too. It was just like, you're just an explosion.
So
I'm like,
intelligent.
I'm like,
I feel like we could probably get lost in a word cloud for a few days.
Yeah. I enjoy it.
We know that there's been a little bit of pushback about, Dave deconstructing, but has there been any like commentary about you meeting with us?
Oh, I mean, yeah. It's been very interesting with in-person relationships and online. And that's been challenging to navigate because in person, there have been people who have had very strong opinions in many ways. And it's been very confusing. Like I've come home and like talked to him after like meeting with certain people that I really respect, and like meeting with y'all and just even like, this sounds so horrible, but it's like people who don't just think like me, and just whether I should even be doing this, And so it's like super confusing and hard, and like, what am I supposed to do? And I almost go into this mode of like, someone just tell me what the right thing is, but it's like, what? So, I mean, again, I keep mentioning in our other video, I mentioned her, this older woman who's counseling me, and you would think because she's like the most Bible, like she's like an ACBC counselor, which is like this form of counseling that's like the like very niche super biblical, but she is just so wise. Like, just she's lived many years, and so when I was sharing all of this with her, she was like championing it the most. And she was so positive and so supportive, and she just has this bigger perspective. She's like, I mean, it's like she's more like, this is what Jesus did. Like, he didn't just be around people that just thought like him. He was around all sorts of people, and like he was about loving and showing such kindness and grace. And like, if you can't do that in real life, like, what are you even doing? And so she just reminds me of like the true core values of Christianity. And so it's been confusing with other people being like against stuff like that. And it's like, wait, but we say like as Christians, like we want to be so loving and kind and gracious and like hospitable and having people like in our homes. And like, for us, it would be like the core and like sharing the gospel. But it's like all of a sudden when it becomes real, like you're going to have people who are non-believers, like in your home and spending time with them. It's all of a sudden like fearful, like, oh no, but then you might stray or whatever. So you need to just be in your bubble with people. And so with in-person relationships, that's been confusing, but I'm super grateful for this older woman because I feel like she has such a level-headed, like central Christian value that, I don't know, has just been really freeing and has honestly changed my faith in a lot of ways to getting back to like that core value of what Christianity is about. I think online people are just mostly confused. I think they think and are wondering like if I'm deconstructing with Dave, if I've changed a lot since then. And I don't know, I think we were talking about this at breakfast, just like, well, if you are getting together with people that think differently than you, then you must endorse everything. So like for you, you'd be endorsing everything I think, and I'm endorsing everything you think. And it's like, no, we can actually get together, be extremely different, really respect one another and build friendships while also still really holding our own beliefs. And that's okay. So I haven't really worried about the online discussion as much because there's always conversations online. I think the hardest part has been those more like in-person relationships and just also like people are just very like curious and even like texting me and wondering and like so it's just been really bizarre. And I think it's really challenged me to evaluate like what is the core of what I believe and why is there this almost like pressure to kind of like stay in my bubble, and why do I want to stay in my bubble, and what am I afraid of, So this has been definitely challenging for me because the truth is I am around a lot of people who think just like me, well, then I'm married to someone who's not. But in general, and that's not something that I want to necessarily be true for the future. But it can be hard to know how to break out of that. So thanks.
Yeah,
that's my breakout moment.
This is amazing. Wow. I'm so inspired by you.
Is this what you guys wanted?
That's what you wanted, you sickos.
I mean, yeah, but the last few months, I've found like such a joy and excitement in a way I haven't really ever before of just like my relationships in my family, in my life. So particularly Dave and then our two kids, like just the joy of being like present in the moment and the joy of like investing into those and receiving the value from those and the benefit from those relationships. It's like, I mean, this sounds so dumb. Oh no, I'm gonna cry again. I cry so much. This will sound so stupid, but it's like this weekend, like Dave and I have had so much great time together lately that, and I've only been here for like 2 days, but we've just spent so much time together, and it's been such high value time that not having that one-on-one time, even in the last 2 days, has felt so sad. So I felt like I've missed him so much. So we've been together, but we haven't like been alone, and that sounds so weird. But it's like that's like the quality of our like relationships have just brought so much like meaning and joy and like just so much life, and it's wonderful. And my desire to do online stuff has like diminished in a lot of ways, and my real in-person relationships have just like exploded. And it's a really wonderful feeling to be like, wow, after 2 days of not having like a lot of alone time with you, I'm like, oh, missing you so much, But it's really true. It's just because our relationship is just so deep and meaningful, and he's truly like my favorite person in the whole world. And I just like in so many ways, I just feel like I can't get enough of him, And so it's just a really big shift, and life is more beautiful than ever in that way.
Goodness, that was sweet.
Well, thanks for letting us interrupt your alone time. It's been really fun for us.
Yes, but it'll, it also is challenging and growing and also really beautiful. And, I wouldn't ever want this experience not to happen, There'll probably be some good times in the next week. So
yeah.
Hey, I'm learning to make drinks. I actually don't really know how to make anything.
He's learning to make drinks. He doesn't really know, but look what a good job he's doing.
Yeah, I'm trying to open this. It's taking me a while. We're making margaritas.
You're doing it with integrity, Dave.
Some of us are doing most of the work, which is providing very powerful and relevant commentary, which is the most important industry these days.
Are you talking about Bethany? What have you?
Oh, I'm not doing anything.
I think it'd be fun to just like kind of go back and get into our lore a bit.
yeah,
Because this, for me, is sort of a momentous occasion, and I think it's worth noting. So, how did this all start for us?
It originally started with us reading a blog post about having a crush on Girl Define's blog like 4 years ago.
Seriously?
And it was about, and
3
you were
years
literally
ago?
talking about Dave. Dave wasn't there, so we had no idea.
It just briefly mentioned. Yeah, we're going to put clips in.
What?
Today we're going to be reading from the Girl Defined blog. This first article that I've pulled up is by Bethany. And the article is called Trusting God with Your Guy Crush. So let's just see what we learn.
I didn't realize y'all had known about us for that long.
Yeah, it
was just
it
like
was
kind of a
pretty
one-off
random.
thing. Sam was like, hey, I read this thing. I got to show you. And I'm like, okay, let's go.
we just kind of
Wow.
riffed on it. It wasn't like us like really criticizing or anything. It was
Yeah.
just like being silly
Yeah,
and being,
yeah.
and because we were like, we need advice for our crushes, obviously.
Of course.
I guess it starts even sooner than that. Could you just say, like, how long have you been doing Girl Defined?
So we've been doing Girl Defined, not we, Kristen and I, for 10 years, which is crazy. So it's kind of started out like all about that stuff, like for like teen to college age girls. And now it's really like evolved because we're both married with kids now. And so the stuff we talk about is just completely different. And neither of us have an interest now in kind of like, oh, let's try to intentionally create controversial content to like get, make it go viral in that way. We're just, I don't know, sometimes you just grow older and maybe more settled in life and you're like, I don't really care in that way to like gain attention or traction through that. So yeah, our content is, I would say, a little bit different and in some ways more mild. I don't know. We're just getting older. So
Yeah.
Dave goes back to the beginning of Girl Defined and like completely like random, like when we just had like no interest in each other, just like totally friends. There was a video, which one was it? The shoe one? Kristen and I made a video that was basically like, I don't know, something on like the Girl Defined theme. It was like a Girl Defined video. I think we've like taken it off, but this stuff always exists. And it was like we were holding up like a man's shoe and then like a woman's shoe and saying random stuff. Who knows what that one goes along with Girl Defined. And Dave, we asked him to create the music because he's a wonderful composer man. So he created it and volunteered his time to that.
This was
when?
So what year was this?
This is literally like what, 8 or 10 years? Like it was
late
when we
90s.
first started. And then shortly after that, when we started blogging, which these are the sorts of posts like that I'm like, I think we've deleted and hopefully they just don't exist anywhere in the world.
Oh. Yeah, you've got like 500 people. Find them now.
This is a topic I'm like, whatever, but this is what it is. So I was writing a post on what guys think about Christian girls with shirts that show cleavage. And so I wanted Christian guys' thoughts. And so Dave was one of the guys that gave his thoughts.
It was proto Barbie review. It was probably had some nuance.
It was nuanced, yeah.
For me at the time, I thought it was kind of progressive or like
edgy.
Moderate. Like I felt like I was not being the legalist. First of all, I felt flattered, this girl on the internet that I know her family, I know her brother, What did you say? Yeah, she comes and reaches out on Facebook and like, what do you think about cleavage?
Literally, it was a
I was like, feeling like kind of mature about it. I'm going to respond to this.
I have several policies about cleavage.
Policy number one. Yeah, I was basic, and the gist of it was I don't have any solid at the time. I don't think it's like a rule like, oh, you shouldn't show cleavage or whatever. But I appreciate it when I don't. yeah, when I
Have to
grow,
witness
yeah, I don't have
the
to.
cleave.
At the time, that's what I
Leave
thought.
the cleave.
Leave the cleave.
Yeah.
It's so, and then a
Yeah.
few years after that,
But you messaged a boy filled with sexual shame who's like doesn't know what to do with himself, and so it wasn't the best data gathering.
anyway, and then a few years after that, I started having a big crush on Dave. So I asked him, I made sure that he was asked to be a volunteer at our conference, the Girl Defined conference, on the video team with my brother.
Yeah.
And he did. He volunteered and came, and it was just so wonderful because I was speaking, but then I would like get to run into him in like the snack room and stuff. And I was just like,
Trey's in the snack room.
And then he was super sweet. Then he like spoke at several of the conferences, and it's just what Dave is. Like people love him everywhere. Like any group, anyone who believes whatever, it's like people just love him. So like at the Girl Defined conference, he even did a Q&A one time, and it was like standing ovations because he's just like it just is so good at explaining things and brings such a fresh perspective that is really like so helpful.
That's so fun. So you had your eye on Dave, and you're like, we're getting him on board.
Oh yeah.
And Dave was just like, okay.
I was like, girls, okay.
Him and my brother Tim, they were like friends.
Cleavage? Well, my official policy is.
So then the next year, I think we were like dating. Then when he came to the conference, and then it was like so each year our relationship progressed, and he was at the conference. So it was really sweet because like the girls that came, they were like watching it, so they were just so excited because it was like he was there just friends. And then the next year we were dating or engaged. I don't know what point it was, but I got to like show a picture and stuff from the previous year of him being there and me like liking him. And then the last time we had the conference, we had Davey, so we got to like bring him up on stage, like our little family, and like the whole progression, like kind of showed the pictures from the years of the conference. It was just, it's like super sweet.
And then after we did that, you just stopped having conferences.
She got what she needed out.
Bye.
There's so much work. I love them. I mean, it is too much. It was too much, So it's like, it's a lot of that stuff. It's like you can, like I could do it all. I could do all of that right now. Like I could, but like at what cost? Like it would take away, and just like in so many ways we've both grown, and like what we're kind of going through with like his deconstruction journey, and like me learning and like going like figuring all of this out, and as a family in this new path we're on, it's like to be traveling, and like I mean when you go to speak, it's like you have to prepare all the stuff, and then just the emotional and mental energy it takes, and then if I'm gone for the weekend, then like my kids, it's like getting all reset. It's just a whole thing. And so it's like picking and choosing, like, okay, what do I actually want to do, and what's, instead of just like, oh, but like for me, it would be like a ministry thing. So it's like, those are all good things. Think of the people you're impacting. Think of the, like I guess the impact you could make. It's like, well, not all good things are like the right things or like the best things to do in the moment. So that's been so freeing to realize like saying no can be a really good thing, and not striving after like growing the numbers. I mean, y'all get that. Like it can be so easy to just like strive, to like build, grow. And it can take up so much. And sometimes when you're just like, no, I'm doing this, and this is what I think needs to be out there, but I'm not going to like stress about growing. I'm just going to do this because I want to, and I believe this is what I should be doing right now. It's really freeing and less stressful, because like the stress of trying to like, okay, like grow and get the speaking engagements or get the next contract, or how many books are we going to sell? It's like, that is just a lot, and when you can kind of just unplug from that like hamster wheel and just enjoy what you've created and enjoy that path, it's like, there is joy in it. This year's the first year I've ever like really even come face to face with the idea of like, oh, like there may come a day, and like, who knows, in the future, it could be even like the near future, where like Girl Defined either has a drastic change or kind of like comes to the end of its existence as it's been known. Not that there's a plan for that, but like realizing like, oh, this, like, it's okay to do things for a certain amount of time and enjoy what happened with that and move on to something else. And it's not like a bad thing or a sad thing or like a failure. There just may be like a new season. Life has changed, thoughts have changed, or just like the timing has changed. And so I think I used to be devastated at the thought, because I found so much identity in what I did and the accomplishments that I had. And so really like realizing that my identity isn't in that stuff, and I don't have to be like this super like outward looking successful person who's got like the next book contract, like that. Like we don't have any more book contracts, and I've never felt more like relieved and so excited, because it's like, that's a lot to commit to, and just But back in the day, it would be like, oh, okay, when we publish this book, are we going to get another contract? What's going to be next? Go. And I found so much like worth in that, I think, in a really unhealthy way. And so when you're not growing, when you're not getting that next contract, when you're not like, why aren't we invited back to that speaking, or that conference? It's like so like devastating, or like, and so just over the years, like really working on where I do find my identity and realizing it's like has nothing to do with that, even though I mentally knew that. It's been so freeing. So I'm so excited for the next year or two, because I really think there are some big changes that are going to happen in the online space, in Girl Defined, in our life. And to me, that is so energizing, and to just feel kind of like the future is very open. And in a lot of ways, we get to choose. Like, we're just, because things have been like, this is what Girl Defined has looked like, this is what our life has looked like. It's like, no, we can make choices and we can kind of create some really exciting things.
I got that.
There's like restaurants on both sides and stuff. But I think it's more beautiful.
You want to see a double click?
Yeah, please, if you would.
Do you bet that I can't do it?
I bet you can't. You'll never do it.
Wow. There's been a lot of like stuff you guys are figuring out, and open-mindedness between you both. Have you felt pressure to sort of, you kind of did say that you had in the Paul and Morgan video, I think, but like to maintain certain views as like your official with Girl Defined content that maybe in your head are like a question mark, or don't feel quite as like prominent in you anymore?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I have like zero interest in digging into the nitty gritty of like that blog post we just talked about, like the cleavage, just like why, like I don't want to, and there's actually people who are really upset that we don't dig into the nitty, like where are those Christians that are standing strong? And it's like we were never trying to be like the modesty people, but it's like it was just, and I get it, like Christians want very black and white like guidelines and rules, and it's like I want that too. And so when we just started talking about modesty, it just like kind of blew up and became like such a hot topic that we ended up talking about it more. But it's like that stuff like that, like I don't really think that's the essence and the heart of at all what I want to be focusing on. And so when it comes to really the, I don't know, like those sorts of nitty gritty details of life, of womanhood, of being a Christian, I just personally don't. I think that can contribute toward more of a legalistic, like works-based form of salvation, and a really like you have to earn your worth before God rather than just something that you receive because he gives it to you and nothing else. And that's like my own personal growth process. And so I really don't want to contribute toward that. And I think I have for sure in the past. Kristen and I, we just met the other day. And one thing for us particularly that we were kind of, there's almost like this pressure to engage with everything that's happening in culture. So for example, like if you're in the Christian space, everyone wants to talk about like Taylor Swift, her new album, like you got to have an opinion on it. Or like all the stuff with like Dylan Mulvaney, like you got to have an opinion on it. And Kristen and I were talking, and I was like, I don't want to be talking about this stuff from like the Christian perspective. Like I just personally, that's not what I really want to spend my time like researching and digging into to try to bring like, I just think there's more important things. And so like really a shift that we're trying to take is like really getting more to like the heart of like why we believe what we believe. And I don't know, it just like a deeper message. It's kind of hard to explain, but there's just this feeling of like, I don't want to participate in like this kind of like surface level, like the do's and don'ts. Like, should you listen to Taylor Swift? Should you not? Like, what should we do about Dylan Mulvaney? Just like all that stuff. It's like, that doesn't create, like, I would only be doing that because I feel like there's a pressure to offer a voice, and because Christians want to have like, what should we do with this? I don't want to be like directing your life in that way. Like for me as a believer, it's like, I want to better understand the word. And like, I'd rather spend my time like trying to better understand that. So there's that whole aspect. But then Kristen and I, like, I think it's obvious from the outside that like our individual families are different and going in two different directions. Like her and Zach are the most plugged into their church, like small group coaches and all of this stuff. And Dave and I, our family looks very different. And so that definitely impacts me and my thoughts and my beliefs. And so I think Kristen and I are also trying to figure out, how do we have a channel that does reflect both of us, like Kristen and I, and where we are, but we're also two individual people. So there have been times where we're sitting there, and I know it's the same for her, where she's saying stuff, and in my head I'm sitting there going like, wait, do I agree with this? Do I even think this? Would I want to say that? Do I actually believe this? And I'm sure for her, in a different way, she might be thinking the same thing when I'm talking. So since we are running this together, Girl Defined together, I think it's trying to figure out like, how do we both be our individual people and bring our different perspectives. And so I think that's kind of the direction we have to go. Like, this is more her perspective and this is more my perspective, not our perspective, because we don't share the same perspective on everything like we used to.
Yeah, there is kind of pressure to be really aligned. I mean, especially because it's defined, like, that's something I'm trying to be a bit better about, is like, sometimes I'll be like, we think this about me and we don't even have as like much of a intertwinement necessarily, because we don't have like a shared religion or something
or
like
family
that. But
totally.
I'm trying to just use I statements for a bit. It's not a big deal, but just like little moments where I notice, like, I'm almost like being like, this is what we think, and it's like a lot of the time I do know that that's what we think, so we talk all the time. But
relatable.
Something that's been helpful, like along with what we were talking about, is not being afraid to be more transparent online. So instead of being like, this is what I've always said, and so I don't want to like share what I actually think now or how I've grown, because people might like dislike that, which is true. There are going to be a lot of people who dislike some of the stuff or changes I make, but it's been like, this might sound really stupid, but it was very freeing for me. Like when it comes to certain modesty standards, my standards have changed a lot. And a lot of that is like talking to Dave and just like really trying to unpack that and figure out like, why have I put so much pressure on myself in that way? But being more like actually posting those pictures to Instagram and posting what I actually wear, like in real life, rather than just being like, oh, well, this wouldn't be a good picture to share because people might look like, be like, wait, Bethany wears that, and being like, that doesn't like, it's so freeing to be like, no, this is actually what I actually wear. Or having real conversations like this, and not trying to edit myself or, okay, what did people want to hear, but just sharing like, no, this is actually what I think. And so it's a little scary. It's like, oh, even just the stuff about like Kristen and I and how we think different. And sometimes in my head, I'm like, I'm not sure. It's like, it's almost like, wait, should I be saying that? But it's like, no, but that's like, if you're going to be online, like, why not just be super genuine and authentic and real and like share the truth? And so I'm really striving to be super honest and genuine. And I just, it's like, if I do that, like, how can I go wrong? You know, the direction that we're going, it makes me very excited, even for our kids. Like, I want to raise them more in this way.
Freedom.
Yeah, so much more freedom. And I mean, looking at the comments and stuff, everyone's like, what? Wait, Bethany? What's going on? Like, is Bethany, you know? But it's like, the reality is, like, I still definitely hold on to my Christian faith, and I definitely identify as a Christian, and I very much hold to the core values of what being a Christian is, you know, belief in Christ and on the cross and the resurrection and all of that. But it's a lot of the just like very secondary and beyond issues that are a matter of conviction that I just like, that just used to be so primary in my mind, and it's just so not anymore. And it's scary when that is so much of kind of like the culture you've been a part of, to move away from that. And to many people that looks like, well, you're just like losing your faith, or you become like less of a Christian, whatever that means. But it's like, I feel more of a genuine relationship with Christ, less of this like performance based than I ever have before. And again, like, this is what I want to pass on to my kids. And so, yeah, it's just like, it's a very exciting time for me, even though it's like, well, what, you and Dave, now you're like in this interfaith relationship. It's like, this has done more good in my life than most other things.
Come on now.
It's crazy because like he helps me to be a better Christian, you know, a better Christian. Like, that's the weird part about it. Like, he's not trying to deconvert me. He's sharing what he believes and what he thinks, but I'm, you know, still holding on to my faith, and I want to at this point. So he's like, well, let me help you be the best Christian that you can. I'm like,
That's
you know,
so Dave.
Yeah. And it's really cool. So it's like, we're both, I think, trying to help each other grow and in the best ways possible, and really support one another, and not trying to like make them what we want them to be. So I really admire that about you, and think that's really cool.
Okay. That's sweet.
But like, you know, on spectrums of control, how much control is an organization leveraging?
But like, have your views shifted at all around, like, as you've become less legalistic and more open? Has that played into your thoughts on LGBTQ issues? Or just curious.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you were saying earlier, Sam, about like, well, like love being like the main thing, and then like there's things under that. For me, like at the end of the day, it's like I wouldn't want any belief, any orientation, anything to ever interfere with the way that I care for someone, love someone, welcome them into my home. And I guess my hope is that even if I hold a different belief or you hold a different belief from me about that, that we can still, like, my heart truly is that I want people to like thrive and have the most meaningful, well-loved life possible. And like for me as a Christian particularly, like I still at this point like believe for me personally that God had a specific design with that. But it's like it doesn't, I believe that because I think that that is the answer to the most flourishing life possible and the most I guess abundant life, whatever, however you want to say it. But that I don't force that on anyone or think that you have to do that. You know, it's just a belief that I hold, but I don't want less happiness. I don't want like, oh, well, then you shouldn't be with that person. It's like, this is what I believe because I think this will make everyone like the most fulfilled. But if you choose something different, that doesn't change my perspective, my value, my love toward that person at all. It's just like if Davey grew up and he were like, I'm gay. It's like, literally to me, I'm not gonna, you know, I'm like, I love you. Come in my home. Come, you know, bring your person with you. Like I will love you and have open arms, just like I hope you would do for me. And it's hard. Like, I don't know, like, is there a world where we can hold those different perspectives and see the heart for someone like me isn't because I want there to be like laws against that, or I don't want people to find happiness. You know, it's like, I'm not going to ever dictate that on anyone personally, but I can hold a belief that I think is true. And at the end of the day, we're all hoping that everyone has like that experience of love and happiness, but we just, our approach to it and the way we go about it, like we believe that there is a different way to get there, you know? But I'm like, you know, Tanner, just the way you are, it's like, I have so much love in my heart for you. And it's like, you're welcome in my home, come back, you know? And I hope that you can have so much like grace and patience toward me, just knowing like, okay, is her mind going to change one day? Who knows, you know? But like her heart is for people to be loved. And I might not agree. And I think that view is harmful, but you know, like she really is trying, you know, and this is where she's at. But you know, for Christians who are like, oh, well then like trying to make all these rules in place or trying to like really genuinely not having open arms, or like Christian parents who literally like don't, you know, love their children. Like, I think that's horrible. And I don't agree with any of that. So I would hate to be lumped into that category as well.
I understand what you're saying, and I relate to that because when I was LDS, it was the same thing. Like, I believed marriage was between a man and a woman. And it wasn't from this place of hating gay people. Like, I had a gay best friend growing up. Like, I grew up with, you know, completely secular, no issues with any of that. But while Mormon, it was just that, like, I have this belief in, my belief system is such that I believe the way a person can flourish. I actually don't know what, you tell me what your, like, type of Christianity believes, but it was like, if someone is gay, they should be celibate, and that's how they'll flourish the most in life. Which I obviously now don't believe, but it did come from this place of like, as in according to my belief system, that's what it is. That's loving, because I genuinely believe they will flourish more. If they don't act upon being gay. Is that how? Is that the same?
It is very similar. Yeah, but it would even be the same standard I held to myself in a lot of ways. Like, I believed and believe like God's best design for like sexual intimacy would be within marriage. So for me, I personally held myself to that standard and thought, okay, I can have a super flourishing life even if I never experience that closeness with someone if I'm single forever. And so it wasn't, you know, like I was accepting that for myself and not like, oh, I'm going to miss out on so much. I believed like God could really give me this amazing, satisfied, beautiful life, even if I was never like held in that way, you know. And I ended up getting married, and you know, that experience changed. But I guess it's like that is kind of I mean, and I guess it sounds really terrible, to say like, you don't want someone to be like, held by another or whatever, but it's like, it's not that. Like, I don't not want them to, it's like, I'm not saying I hope you're never held. Like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. Like, and so you can put those like words onto it and like twist the way like maybe a Christian like me believes, but it's like, no, that's not what I want for you. Like, I do want you to be like loved and experience the most life possible. But I just kind of think there is like a structure that God created that gives you that,
I do get the sense that you are, especially at this point, not out here trying to like enforce your opinions about other people's lives onto them. Like, you seem like someone that's like in your own lane, and like both of you are very like looking at yourselves constantly and like, what's right for me. You don't seem like someone that's like,
you're not out writing the legislation and
yeah, you have that belief, but it's I guess it's like you're not trying to thrust it on anyone else. You're not trying to tell someone else this is what you should do with your life.
For sure.
It's just like, that's how I believe at this moment in time.
I mean, I feel like in so many ways for Christians and non, it's like it's kind of become like this central thing, and in some ways I would like to, like with what we're doing, like focus more on like just people as a whole and less on like, all of that, like, all these, I don't know, just like who they can be with or what they should be doing or not doing. It's like
what you're wearing, what you're eating, what you're
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like it all kind of is in that same boat to me. Like I think I am a way better off Christian if I'm focusing just more on like genuinely like inviting people into my home or building relationships and extending like true, genuine love without being afraid. Like for me, this has been a challenge this weekend of like, okay, like I know I might have some viewpoints that are different than the three of y'all, and I don't want to be like my certain viewpoints might change in the future. I don't know, but like right now I should be honest about what I think right now and not try to change that to not offend or to be like, well, now they're not going to like me or people on the internet might get mad. It's like, if I'm going to do that, like I'm not being genuine and I'm not being real. And I want y'all to see the realest version of me and either accept that or not, you know? And so even this conversation, it's like, I know that's super touchy and I know that it can be taken a million different ways. And would I rather not talk about it? Probably, but it's like, if we're not going to have a conversation like that amongst us, like it's always going to stay one side and like the other,
I hear like the cognitive humility in the way that you talk about it. Like, I mean, I think it's good for all of us to be like, my beliefs on anything could change at any point. And the way you're talking about it is like a big departure from perhaps the way you've talked about it in the past, or the way, like really hardline people online in Christian camps might talk about it. Like, I guess I'm just saying I respect the way you even talk about your beliefs and like the caveats I'm hearing within. Like I see a lot of like cognitive humility in that, and I do.
And trying to hold a lot for yourself and for others,
and recognizing that there's things you don't know. We all like, that's something we have to all be able to do at all times.
Well, and even like if I like looking more at Jesus and like the Gospels and stuff, and just like what like sometimes I think that as like for me at least as a Christian, I've like really honed in on like the don't do these things, don't do these things, and like really genuinely have missed a lot of like the grace and love and compassion that Jesus extended in so many ways. And I think it's more of like this righteousness complex, or I don't know what, like I gotta hold all these, and it's like, I think I've been afraid of grace. I think I've been afraid of like really loving people without it being like, no, love has to be calm to repentance,
Love always has to be tough. Make it tough. I don't share the same assumptions right now. And I'm not saying that I have landed, but I'm a lot more comfortable to celebrate people's, what they identify as, especially adults, what they choose to, how they choose to think about gender, how they choose to think about their own sexuality, who they're sleeping with. It's like in general, my emotional propensity or my emotional preference is just acceptance. You do you, like, don't harm people. Don't harm other people, consenting adults, that sort of thing. So man and man, many men, many women together, it's like, whatever. Like, I don't, if I come back to some sort of form of Christianity, and I again start to assume those, okay, God has designed this and this is how it's supposed to look, then that view could change. But right now I don't have that assumption. So it becomes, all that to say, I understand Bethany's point of view, and I don't just think, oh, that's so crazy. Who could ever do that? That's just so blatantly harmful, and I can't understand why that's not, why anybody would hold that. I do understand why I understand in a lot of cases why many well-meaning Christians throughout church history have held those beliefs and assumptions and conclusions that follow from those assumptions. The harm principle goes something like, you should be free to do whatever you want. You're an adult, do whatever you want, as long as you don't bring harm upon another person. The problem is that harm is going to be defined differently by plenty of people, depending on what you think human nature is. And and some philosophers would argue you can't figure out what human nature is unless you know what human beings are for. So the one philosopher used the picture of a watch. If you take a watch, how do I know this is a good watch or not? If I use this watch, hammer a nail, and the watch breaks, I could say, this is a bad watch. This watch doesn't work. Well, I have a perhaps incorrect view of what a watch is for, so I shouldn't require a watch to be able to effectively hammer a nail because it's not what it's for. So can you actually figure out harm and flourishing without knowing what a human being is for? And I don't have a reconciled, this is an area that I don't have an answer to. I just know.
We can't be waiting for those answers before we give people rights would be probably the.
Well, you can, I don't want to.
Sure, yeah.
So technically you can, but in order to have life together, something is going to happen. And even if that something is doing nothing for a specific group, say a marginalized group, nothing is doing something. So if nothing is saying, we can't really know, therefore we're just not going to give you any, we're not going to admit rights, we're not going to do that, then that is doing something.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I'm not a moral philosopher, so I don't ultimately have, I'm very much in process as to how to build a coherent and rigorous ethical framework, especially in a pluralistic society where you've got competing moral and ethical frameworks. So all of this is that's getting way into the weeds. All that's to say is harm is complicated depending on the person talking about it, the discourse. Freedom is complicated depending on who's talking about it, And so I have a lot of grace for people having different conclusions based on their different assumptions of what the purpose of human life is, or what the makeup of human nature is. A lot of policy conclusions and policy decisions, they're opposite because they rest on opposite assumptions about human nature. And so it's like this actually follows. The problem is all these people live in the same society and need to somehow figure out how to work together. And very few people I know of in society would say, I want people oppressed. But there is oppression. I think we can agree. So that's the complication we're living with.
And as much as everyone's harm is, we all have different ideas about harm, but I see you both as people that would be very willing to listen to someone talk about their suffering, or
for sure,
because we gotta all listen to each other in society with regards to harm. And there are certain issues where for us it can be an intellectual theoretical exercise that for other people is a lived reality of deep suffering. And I do see you both as people that would be willing to listen to that, which is, I think, what it takes.
Yeah, that's when that happens for me, that's typically when I have mental chaos. Is when somebody shares an experience, or I hear some experience and I'm it doesn't fit my categories. And now I'm questioning
masculine, not just the hyperlogical.
Right. Yeah, 100%. That's a really good reminder to me too, because that's
both methods contain deep value and intelligence and wisdom. It's not I'm saying masculine and feminine just as
sure.
No one has to use those words, but
yeah. Sometimes I find it difficult to reconcile that that landing lived experience way of seeing, that lands on an emotional empathic level over against a theoretical framework of how can we have fairness for everyone and how can all the boxes be coherently checked.
I appreciate you guys answering that, and because again, I want to understand where you specifically, not just Christians intersecting in you, but like you personally believe about these things. And it's like a issue, of course, that's like super, super near and dear to my heart. And having been like not just Christian or Mormon and being like, yeah, that's not God's way, I was like genuinely homophobic, to the phobia being like an irrational fear of homosexuality, of being like, this is going to cause the degradation of America. Like, kids are all just going to become gay and we're not going to be able to reproduce. There's not going to be any more kids. Like, the world is just going to implode. And that's a phobia, because there's like, even if gay people wanted to, like, it's just not going to happen. There's like, people will always be, there's always going to be straight people too. Like, it's just not going to happen. I was going through my journal recently, and I'd written about this incident in high school where we were like playing a game and some guy got like handsy and physical with me, and I was like, you homo. And a girl called me out and she was like, that is homophobic. You can't say that. And I was like, it's not homophobic. He was coming at me and I was just telling him, don't like be gay at me. And she was like, And I wrote, I wrote in my journal, like, maybe we'll talk about it when she can be more rational. So, going from that to then just literally just meeting gay people and befriending gay people, and at a time when it was not okay to be gay, and still in like a religious context, and seeing their wrestle with that, and seeing all the phobia that's being leveraged at them, and the scapegoating that's happening, just opened my heart. And I had to kind of adopt what you were saying, where it was like, oh, like I've been really like black and white about this thing, and I haven't even taken the time to know what that experience would be like for that person. I've just shut them down. You're bad. You're doing this thing that's evil. You're trying to corrupt the world. But it's like, what are you going through? And that just, of course it changed me, because I had to have empathy. There's no way I could not. And then leaving the church and like understanding that aspect of myself, and living an openly queer life, and seeing the way that it's not, to me, it's not like a dysfunction, it's not a mistake or a flaw, it's just a feature. And for me, a feature that brings so much beauty and love and creativity, and is like central to so much about what is like deeply meaningful and beautiful in my life. So when I'm going into conversations about this, I can get really, really heated and feel like, even now I have like a little thing in my chest that's like, can't just everyone see it? Like, I want to, I see the scapegoating and the undue negative focus on queer people. And I get like feisty, and I want to just be like, just do exactly what you said. Just get to know people, please. Just like get to know us, talk to us. Like, I promise we're not evil. We're not like trying to destroy America or whatever. Like, and so I feel that all very deeply. Having been through that full spectrum of experience, I also have so much compassion for everybody along that whole spectrum of experience. And so, when someone's like, how could you dare meet, like, I would never meet these people in the middle. I'm like, I'm so glad that somebody met me in the middle. I'm so glad. Even, if I didn't turn out queer or whatever, I'm just glad that I had, because being able to connect on a human heart level was so meaningful and beautifying to me, that experience alone was justified that, And so, I guess I'm just trying to explain the multiplicity of feelings that I have going into these types of conversation. And I appreciate your openness and authenticity about that. And I do think it's important to be able to talk about it without just, reverting back to our echo chambers.
Is it?
And I think even if
We're all
people
like-
are very like, you know, even the people that aren't even able to meet in the middle and are really like low down, like I feel like there's kind of a view often that like we shouldn't have too much compassion for them because like the view is so harmful that we shouldn't, that it's like enabling to have too much empathy for them. But I think we both understand how when you are in that space, not that it's all about you, but it's like there is, unbeknownst to you, often like deep suffering accompanying that, because I feel like Alok talks about this a lot, but it's like what you're demonizing in others, you're demonizing in yourself. And so the permission you don't feel able to grant to others is permission that you aren't able to give to yourself. And there's a deep grief in that people aren't even necessarily aware of yet. And, you know, it doesn't, I'm not just saying like if they're gay, but, you know, like gender expression being a good example of like, there's ways we've all been sort of like put in a box because of gender stereotypes and have suffered because of it and have been limited in our, you know, ability to fully express our humanity in a lot of cases. So yeah,
it's kind of like the, you know, strict patriarchy hurts men too, because it's like you have to be this ideal thing, and if you're not that, you're less than, you're unworthy, da 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 da.
Yeah, so it's like, it's not even that it's like, oh, now they can meet in the middle, now people deserve, it's like I truly do think people deserve compassion at every single stage, because and again, that's not to like diminish the fact that the people on various points in the spectrum may be like participating in harm and like perpetuating it. We can hold like that, we can hold that too, but I don't think that has to take away from the
That's incredible.
No, because I'm in this video, there will be like a whole set of people that watch it that might not normally watch self videos. So I'm just curious specifically from you, Tanner, people like me, people that are maybe even more extreme than me, like what, like for your voice right now, like what would you want them to know? Like you're saying, let's have those conversations, let's talk about it. I think it's like such a perfect time for you to share, like, hey, like as a queer person and like that wrestling, like this is what I want you to know about like me, and this is what I want to share, because I think like I can benefit from that, and I know the whole group of people that are coming for the first time, I think it could be really helpful.
Well, I think most of us have a desire to be like witnessed, like deeply witnessed for who we are and for how we see ourselves, and not just to have like things projected onto us.
Exactly.
And so like, you know, this weekend, for instance, kind of, you know, itches that craving for me of just like wanting to be seen in my wholeness. And of course, you're not seeing my day to day. You're not seeing me with my partners or whatever. You're just seeing me as just like a normal person sitting in a living room having a conversation. And I think like that needs to be just like, you know, item number one is like humanizing each other. Should you have a really hard opinion about gay people if you're not interacting with gay people? Can you like speak really divisively about trans person if you've never talked to a trans person about what their experience is like and what growing up trans is like and what you know, wrestling with the political thing now, like this stuff, like, you know, Utah just passed a thing that's like trans people aren't allowed to use these, you know, federal or government bathrooms. And it's like, is this what we need to be focusing on? And like, as a trans person, it's like, why is the power of the state that could be, you know, feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, liberating the captive, doing the things that Jesus actually talked about? Because Jesus never said one word about gay people or trans people. He said, feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit the captive. And my queerness, you know, it's not like, I guess I always, you know, I viewed it in the context of sin, like this temptation, this thing of like, you know, if somebody could just like slip up and then become, it's like this addictive thing. And to me, my queerness was like, is just, like I said, like a feature of my identity. And when that was squashed down, the image that always comes to my head is this like kink hose. Like I wasn't able to be my full self, kind of like what we were talking about with like masking, where, you know, you might feel like the urge to be like, or like, but because we're like, no, this is normal, I'm just going to be normal, you end up like holding this tension, and then you're not loose and natural. And like me, I wasn't as loving because my body didn't exist in a state where I could fully love, because I couldn't fully love myself, because there was this aspect that was always like had to be ignored, had to be shoved down. But when I just like accepted it and loved it, I became like much more at ease in my own body. And now I feel like because I'm in ease in my own body, I can offer that ease to others as a gift, where I don't have to be upset at them or like feel that like, how am I going to be perceived, or is this thing that's part of me going to like come out and reveal itself, and are they going to judge me? It's just like, I'm just here. And I hope that's like, I'm just here. And I hope that self-acceptance also extends to acceptance of others, and like offering that kind of like non-judgmental witness. Like, I want to witness you, and I want to hear and will ask you, if whenever it's appropriate, about your like Christian experiences, because I want to hear about the things that are most important to you. I want to see the way that you see yourself, not just the way that I have been conditioned to see you.
What I hear you saying is like you went from, your journey is sort of one from self-judgment constriction, physical constriction, into this free-flowing ability to basically be an embodied person without this tensing, this kind of like, I have to hide, I have to change, I have to be different, I have to hit my block for the performance, Yeah, would that be more or less kind of the, like your journey has been more of like that kind of a flower, sort of like opening, and then you're able to
I am
basically
a flower, and I have been blossoming.
provide to be able to provide that sense of freedom to others who feel that constriction,
and not even necessarily about homosexuality, but kind of like what you were talking about, that when we've been constricted by anything, it could be anything. I want to put people at ease, because I want to be, an open, loving, person. The same kind of person I wanted to be when I was like an outspoken Christian. That same like core is there, even though some of my paradigms have changed.
Yeah, it seems like, because there are stereotypes about, leaving the faith, you just want to sin. You just want to do all those things you couldn't do. And I think the stereotypes very much apply to LGBT issues from the perspective of people who come from the outside of that, which is, you just want to do sex however you want to do, and you just have all these weird desires we can't relate to, and they're not natural, and you just want to go and just lust and just be crazy and just do whatever you want to do, or whoever you want to do. And what I hear, but what I hear you saying is that it's not just a matter of that as the ultimate end. Like my own desire, it's a matter of like, there's a sense of like wanting to be set free, a sense of wanting to fully experience yourself as yourself.
Yeah, it's an authenticity thing.
Right. Yeah.
And I think even just allowing for desire for the sake, like it's okay to fulfill desires for the sake of fulfilling desires, if that makes, like, obviously don't hurt other people and be sensible and stuff like that, but like not even like doing away with the framework that there has to be like permission or a reason to like fulfill a desire. Again, this is all obviously with many caveats around, like, just do whatever you want, but
but
like a harm principle,
like a hedonist in the sense of like, all I want to do is like unmitigated pleasure all the time, right? Like that's not my mentality. It's just like, I want to be who I am and accept all the parts of me, and be able to like explore that with curiosity, and with curiosity rather than like
not like shame. Suspicion. Like we don't have to be so suspicious of our desires.
That's not to say that all desires have to be pursued,
but it's like just, once you can just like earnestly acknowledge all the desires that you may have, that doesn't mean you then like go out and fulfill every one.
It's the validation of the desire, I think, is a validation, like being able to accept all the desires.
Yeah, I guess my point is just like, I do think it's like valuable to be able to just like, again, be curious about any desire you might have, and then like in that curiosity it's less likely to come out in a dysfunctional way. And so just like take an honest inventory of your desires without shame or without, and we all contain like contradictory desires, so like we won't if you really just like unshame it all, you won't want to fulfill every desire, because you can like notice desires that are more fleeting and where potentially the consequences will be too negative. You know, you can like analyze all that rationally, rather than, again, if you're coming from that place of like tension and like running from yourself, you don't have that ability as much. And that's why I think we see a lot of like really dysfunctional like sex crimes in like really repressed communities, for example. And
because there's no way to just deal with it openly. It has to be, I mean, this is Jungian psychology, it has to be relegated to the shadows. So it only can come out in like these like spontaneous acts of, you know,
which often inflict harm.
So like you know, with me and bisexuality, for instance, I'm bisexual, and that is a desire, that is like an aspect of me that I'm going to be like, that I am pursuing. And it's not even being like I'm making the decision, it's like that is what I'm pursuing, and I'm just aware that is what I'm pursuing, because I'm able to just be open about that. And I'm in like a mixed orientation relationship. I don't think that works for everybody. There's some people who are like just straight up gay and have no interest whatsoever in the other person. I'm like, you know, marrying a woman isn't going to make you, that'll just make you, that'll be bad news. So, you know, it works for me, but it's built, you know, that relationship works because it's both of us being authentic about our experience, and then working with that with each other. Like, okay, that's an aspect of you. What does that mean for you? How do we like deal with that? What do we do about it? So I've been able to now, in like the best partnership of my life, it's because the full aspect of me can be experienced and appreciated and explored with curiosity, versus like feeling like I need to conform and hide, and that's the only way I could fit into a partnership, be worthy of partnership.
For me, something like this, it's like, and people who are coming here because they found it through me, it's like I would just encourage like me and them to just have an attitude of more like listening and trying to learn, and not so much like, here's the response to it, here's the thing you need to know. It's like, and it comes out both sides, like, no, you're missing. It's like, let's just like take a minute and just like listen, and just like listen and let that be the goal, you know, not to try to have an answer or try. So I think for me, it's like that. I feel like I'm coming at the best place when I'm just trying to understand you, not trying to like change you.
Can I ask another even like personal question? Like, what's your like relationship with God like? Like, what do you pray about? What do you meditate on? Like, what and that like the real, just like in your heart, Bethany, just between you and God, what's that like?
I mean, I've definitely had to question and think about a lot, not had to, but I have chosen to, just my whole view of God, because of Dave's experiences and what he's been going through. So it's definitely, the last few months have been interesting for me in that way. But for me, I like, when I think of God and I think of my relationship with him, I personally just find like a huge sense of like love and security. Like my view of God and my, I guess, personal experience with him feels very loving and very, very like safe, and very much like, no matter what's going on in life, like I can turn to him, I can talk to him, I can trust him, like I can bring all my cares to him. And it's, you know, like, this might sound terrible to some Christians, but it's like, I think growing up, especially like through the end of high school, I felt a lot of pressure to like perform certain specific Christian duties that proved you had the kind of right relationship with God. So you had to read your Bible this much, you had to do all these things. And honestly, kind of like when I got married to Dave, I really didn't like that. And I was like, I don't want to have this like rigid check the boxes kind of relationship with God. And so I often don't have like a set routine of like, this is when I read the Bible, this is my devotional, this is what my prayer life looks like. It's much more of trying to have like a real relationship with him. I don't even know how to explain it. And so prayer for me, sometimes it looks like, you know, pulling out my journal and like writing out all of my thoughts, almost like journaling, praying. And that can be like a super meaningful way for me to like connect in my relationship with God. And sometimes it's just like, oh, I'm, you know, just kind of struggling with something, and I'll just like be in the room, like kind of like praying, or, you know, be driving in the car and praying. I thought, oh, I'm being emotional again. But I mean, in some ways, and this is like, I guess maybe like super, like, like probably like too honest to share, but I think that I think with everything that's going on with Dave and stuff, like in some ways I have felt like God is a little more distant, and haven't felt as close to him as I have in years past. And I think it's, it's just like there's a lot going on. And so as much as I, as a Christian, do believe and have felt that as such a sense of peace, I think that I am going through a lot. And I think that sometimes it's just like, to be honest, like not always the place that I want to go to. It's like it's like, oh, I struggle sometimes. And so having like that mentor I've talked about so much, like going and meeting with her, like that has been like one of the most encouraging relationships during this time. And she's like an amazing Christian woman. And so more like the I guess the real representation of Christ in my life, more than like my direct relationship with him. Like, for me, that's probably been the most, in the way that I feel most connected to God right now. And that's been super encouraging, because I think I need like that, those real life relationships, like in a really, like I just need that right now. And so I don't want to, I don't honestly like try to overthink it or analyze it or try to be like, why do I feel this way? Or what's the, fear of the future, or what's going on, or God, I just kind of like letting it be and not stressing about it and not worrying about it, and not worrying about what all that looks like and trying to have all the answers to everything and figure everything out. I'm kind of just like, like just letting it be. And that's been helpful. But sometimes I do feel kind of like overwhelmed, or just kind of like discouraged or confused, or just like really like just like a big question mark. So I mean, people are looking for like the ideal Christian. I'm like, I'm probably not like her. Like I feel like I say
it's probably a good thing
that are like not the best answers or whatever. But I do have, like last night I was struggling and I was like so sick and all these things. And I was like, I don't really know what else to do. So it's like, I was just like praying, in my room. And it was like a relief of sorts, like just being able to like take my cares to the Lord and just like give it all to him. Like, I don't know, just like, I literally don't know. And then Dave comes in and I'm like, help me, help me, what do I do with myself? I'm like a mess,
Oh, Bethany.
So
I know it's like our last day, so it isn't like super relevant anymore. But like, if it would have, like, we could have all showed up for you and just like heard you and like sat with you in those emotions, and like, I'm sorry you were kind of like suffering in silence a bit last night. And I get the sense that you're a trooper in a major way that, yeah, I don't know, but I'm just like, I want you to have all the community support possible.
You're so sweet.
I know that we love you, even like there's, yeah.
I mean, I in so many ways over the last few months, like my heart is just kind of like blossomed and kind of exploded. And so my emotions are always just like in a really beautiful way, though. Like I cry like a lot all the time. This is just kind of the way I am now.
Doesn't go away.
And so it's just the way that it is. And I just will like be looking at Dave like, I love you so much, or just like about anything. I just feel so much more deeply in so many ways about everything. So the tears are just kind of like always, as I start talking about something meaningful.
Definitely.
I love that the way that you're talking about like God being that, like being connected to the experience of love. And like that was me, like my conversion to Jesus, and it did feel like a very like real thing to me. And it was always rooted in like just the deepest, sincerest, sweetest love that made me want to love other people more. And I can't speak for how your guys' experience will be, because it's all unique to everybody, but the experience of love has not gone away. And even though I have different models for God, and I have a lot of question marks too, I have a lot of competing models, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm interested, and I like to play around with ideas, and I like to be open to things, but the experience of love is always there. And more I get that feeling. I mean, you know, Jesus even says, "Inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me." And to me, I take that line from Les Mis: to love another person is to see the face of God. And like in my paradigm right now, like this is where God wants me, wants us, and the love that I'm experiencing, and the love that just like brought us together, not because we were like, "Oh, what's the best way we could make money on YouTube?" but genuinely feeling like an authentic heart connection, and just like feeling so safe in pursuing that, even though we're like, what are like girl defined? Like we've like made videos about her. Like, no, like this is crazy. How could we but trusting in the experience of love has just, and being here has just confirmed that even harder to me. That like that is the thing that matters, and maybe that is the refining of faith, the burning away of all the paradigms that prevent us from just soaking in that full experience of love. And maybe this is the way that, like, you know, if you're feeling at this time that like maybe it's not exactly how it was or how I would wish it was at this moment, well, maybe that is just being like, exactly like you said, well then this is now the time where I have to connect in real love with real people. And isn't that so beautiful? And isn't that what God would want?
Yeah.
So I'm just, I love you. And we don't have to end the video right now, but I just
I feel like it's the perfect place.
Getting there. Yeah.
I mean, these conversations have been like you can't force these things, and I just feel like they've been like magical.
I know.
Like
I
really
believe this whole experience makes like I do believe in magic. I believe there's like some collective consciousness work, the Tao, whatever, something's happening.
Yeah, it's like whatever name we want to call it, whether you call it God, whether you call it Tao, whether you call it Brahma or the universe, it's like it's there. We're all a part of it. Here we are. What do we do about it? Like, and being able to like recognize that while we have linguistic differences, we can still meet in that heart space.
Yeah. I agree.
I feel like I'm gonna cry. That's why I'm like, I need to end the video so I can just cry with you guys.
Group hug.
Group hug.
That's Tanner eating at the airport.
I'm like literally just cleaning out my teeth at this moment. So.
That's wow.
Here we are in the Texas airport, waiting for our ride.
Do I look lost and hopeless, or?
Dave immediately put Billy Joel on. I just wanted the vlog to know. Whoa!
Do we put it on right now?
Yeah,
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you can tell, but this shirt says just 4 messy girl bosses figuring it out.
It's right here. You know, come here.
Oh, hi Tanner. I got no one does win, Brit. Back at it again.
Back at it again.
He's
A
got
little
a problem.
faster, a little more determined, a little more.
Different glasses.
Oh, you said you started
Yes.
vlog too.
Yesterday's smart glasses can't come to the phone right now. We're not using them. We have different ones.
We have
James
cactus.
panic bought.
Yeah. It was kind of. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
That was my best one yet.
Where did you just go?
That was really magical. Just casually. That's fun.
That was it. That was the shot.